Listen, I'm just going to be the one saying this because apparently nobody will. There's a strong chance that AI is negatively impacting the trajectory of your business career. We are right now seeing a wave of vibe coders and how to automate this, how to build an app here, how to ship your SaaS product, how to do this, that, and the other using AI. For 99% of people, 99% of the stuff they build is completely and utterly useless. But I want to talk about why, and I can almost guarantee that if you watch this video through and through, you will have a much better understanding of what to actually build and focus on as a business owner, and you will potentially save a lot of time alongside additional revenue. So here's the AI delusion, okay, and why everyone is building and why pretty much nobody is winning. Now, I understand that there are outliers just like in any other industry, right? We of course have outliers of people that have successfully started SaaS companies via vibe coding and have turned that into successful and scalable businesses. But just because there are outliers does not mean that's where you should put your time, okay? So people confuse activity with leverage, all right? So AI has created a new form of fake productivity, and this is as legitimate as it gets, okay? That means endless workflows. That's AI agents. I'm hearing all about these second brains, automation stacks, productivity systems, AI SaaS clones. And this all looks like work, but it pretty much isn't. I mean, how many videos have you seen about, build a second brain using Claude Code and Obsidian? And for 99% of people, it looks cool to build and you feel kind of like Iron Man, but it's just not doing you any good. You're just wasting time building unnecessary stuff that you are either never going to use or, something that didn't actually change anything or make anything faster or increase revenue or do any of these things, right? So people are now building things because they can. And this is the biggest one. Suddenly, people that had no ability to code and no way of creating these applications, website, and automations can now build this, via plain English. So people are building things because they can. This is something entirely new, right? Beforehand, if you wanted to create an application or an automation or anything like that, you had to spend thousands of dollars on a development team if you were not some hotshot developer yourself, right? Again, nowadays with Claude Code, you can literally turn plain English into a website. But just because they can does not mean they should, right? AI lowered the barrier to creation, but lowering the barrier to creation does not create demand. And this is where people are fundamentally wrong. They believe that just because they can now create all of these applications, suddenly there's demand for these applications that they're creating, but there just isn't. Okay, developers have existed for so long, right? Ever since computers became a thing, developers has existed. So all of the ideas that you're getting, somebody else has had. Okay, so it's not as if, just because I can build a Slack clone, it doesn't mean it's going to turn into revenue because somebody already built that, right? And they probably did it way better than you as they are actual developers. Building faster does not mean building something valuable, okay? And listen, I'm not speaking from ego or anything like that because I have fallen into this trap myself. And we're going to get more into that later in this video. And I mean, look around. It is literally everywhere. We're talking another Slack clone, another AI note taker, another AI workspace, AI CRM, or another productivity OS, right? All of these things is literally all I see around my social media. And so people have this idea that they need to create everything that they're using. So for example, within my company, we use Slack, right? Does that mean that just because I can, I'm now going to vibe code another Slack to communicate with my employees? No, because why would I do that when I can save that time, put it somewhere else, and just use Slack? It just doesn't make sense, right? Most of these companies are solving problems that nobody actually cares about. Right? I'm seeing so many different applications, mobile apps, websites, automations, all of these things that are just of no use, right? And nobody actually cares about them. Nobody's going to buy it. Nobody's interested in it, right? And so people are essentially just wasting time. Now, I didn't come to this conclusion as an outsider, okay? I use AI every single day. In fact, this video is published on an AI channel, and I have done a tremendous amount of research when it comes to AI, and I have a lot of experience. So here are some of the things that I have built using AI. I have built dashboards, right? That's things like investment dashboards. right? I have built macro dashboards. I have built dashboards for news, right? All of these different things which I use in my day-to-day life. For example, for my investments, I have turned into an actual dashboard. Now, have I ever used those dashboards and have they legitimately contributed to my revenue? Absolutely not, in no shape or form, right? I pretty much did it because I thought it would be useful and because I thought it would be cool and perhaps I could even sell it later. But here's the thing. Why would anyone buy my dashboard when they are already using Interactive Brokers that has a built-in dashboard? I mean, it just doesn't make sense, right? I've also built countless of automations that just turn out to be useless. I mean, the most amount of success we've had with our workflow within the company is simple Zapier automations. For example, we also use ClickUp, right? So when somebody created a new task on ClickUp, whoever that task was created for would get notified on Slack. That is one of the most simple automations, yet it is one of the most useful ones because it saves me time and it alerts that person on Slack, which is most likely the platform that they're using or, that they're active on the absolute most. And so 90% of all these automations that I've created are just useless. And I've also spoken with countless of other people that have gone through the same problem, not because they don't work or because, I can't vibe code certain automations. It's just that there's no use case for them. Right? Doing it manually might just be faster, right? I've also built workflows. I've built workflows that are optimized around these automations, right? I've built AI agents. And let me tell you this, AI agents are decent for convenience. They're not good for anything else. So for example, yeah, sure, you can build an AI agent that's going to respond to an email, but what is it going to respond to an email regarding a potential partnership? You probably want to take that email on your own, right? Or have a human assistant do that for you, right? You do not want to use an agent who can screw up, who can do all these things, and it is a task that legitimately takes you 3 minutes, right? And so AI agents are great for executing certain things. For example, I use AI agents to complete a task that involves organizing my downloads folder, because these are things that I don't want to spend my time doing, and this can do it just as great as I can, right? And so that is a legitimate use case of an agent because it immediately saves me time. There's no question whether it will be useful in the end. I don't have to get used to some sort of new automation process. I don't have to set up and teach this AI agent how to write and respond exactly like I would. I can see an immediate return on my investment by telling this AI to organize my desktop or certain folders, right? And so that's what I primarily use AI agents for. It is simple tasks that I can see an immediate ROI on, okay? And when I say ROI, I of course mean in the form of saving time. I've also built command centers, all right? And this is actually something AI is pretty solid at. So for example, with Claude, you can integrate it with Notion. And instead of you spending weeks building a command center on Notion, well, then you can essentially you can do this with the Notion AI agents, but you can also do it via a Claude, right? Have that create a command center for you. So this is where you can replace manual labor, and that's when it's worth it, right? For systems, that's not necessarily worth it because the vast majority of my systems are through applications that already exist. And I'm not going to try and sit here and pretend that I can optimize systems better than developers who has probably dedicated the vast majority of their life to building these systems. And I also fundamentally believe that AI is just not good at system building, right? And all of this is months of work. And none of it has brought me any additional revenue in that sense. The ROI was nowhere near what I got from research. One of the most simple things AI can do for you, and one of the things that has existed ever since ChatGPT first came out, right? This is by far the highest ROI that I've ever gotten out of any AI model is simple research. And of course, the more development that we see within AI, the better the research, right? And so that's great. But research, the reason why it is so great is because it improves the things that actually compound, right? So building gave me more tools, more dashboards, more tabs open on my computer, and more maintenance. I'm not a SaaS guy, and so there's in no way, shape, or form any reason for me to sit here and deal with maintenance and deal with debugging and all of these different things, right? Research, on the other hand, gave me better decision making. It gave me clarity, timing, positioning, awareness, and so much more, right? And those things directly impact my revenue, my investments, my content performance, my business direction. This gives me an immediate ROI on the things that actually matter within my business. These things here just cause more confusion and doesn't save me time 90% of the time, right? A dashboard rarely changes your life, but a single insight can do exactly that. AI is the most powerful when it enhances cognition. You see, most people think AI is about production, automation, coding, workflows, and for a very small percentage of the population, this might be accurate. But for 99% of business owners, this is the real value. Information synthesis, pattern recognition, accelerated learning. This is a big one, right? People underestimate this entirely. You have an entire, you pretty much have all the information in the world stored inside of an AI model. We have never in the existence of human beings been able to learn at a pace as we are now. We can learn literally anything at any given moment by simply utilizing AI. And as a business owner, this is what you should take advantage of, right? Not trying to optimize some dumb automation that you could have done through Zapier, right? Perspective generation, research and analysis, and spotting opportunities. I think this is what AI is all about. And for 99% of people, this is where your focus should be. So here's how I actually use it. I use it for my personal investments, right? It does macro research. It does market structure. It does narrative analysis, sector understanding, and it spots asymmetric opportunities for me, because these are the things that used to take me so long when I was trying to optimize my investments, right? It would take me hours and hours to do research on all of these different things. And that is now replaceable via AI, because it does that better than I do, and it does it much faster, right? So there's pretty much an immediate return on my my investment here. And so that's why I fundamentally use it. Now for YouTube, right? I use it to understand audience psychology, do title research for me. In fact, we had a YouTube strategist, we've had multiple, and we've been able to fire all of these people because of AI. So it has replaced my YouTube strategist because it understands how to read, absorb, and then explain that to me. So it can read and absorb information better than I can, and it can explain it to me better than any article or book ever could, right? Or any strategist for that matter. And so these are the things that I use it for now: title research, hook analysis, trend detection, right? But one thing I'm not going to do is build an entire app, right? I'm not going to start building an entire application or website or software about all of this, because I don't need to. I just don't, right? I can do pretty much all of this right here within Claude Cowork. And so me sitting here trying to build an application is nothing but me wasting time hoping that, I've created something cool. I use it in business, right? Competitive research. I might research competitors, find certain patterns, right? Again, strategic thinking, finding bottlenecks within the company, and market analysis as a whole. These are the things that I genuinely believe AI is here to help you with. Right? And as a business owner, I believe these are the things that you should focus on rather than all this nonsense. And I believe that for 90% of people, the reason why you're even building all of this stuff to begin with is because you see somebody online talking about how he vibe coded this, he did that, or the other, and then you start to feel unproductive because you're not sitting here vibe coding. You might be busy answering emails, and then somebody just told you that they've created an AI agent that just responds to all emails for them, and so you start to feel unproductive, and then you start to vibe code, right? And I think that's the reality for 99% of the people. And AI didn't make me more productive, okay? It made me a better thinker. In fact, if anything, AI has made me less productive for a certain period of time, because I was just like everyone else. I was obsessed with trying to automate everything and create websites for everything because I finally could and I saw that everyone else was doing it. But as time went on, well, then I slowly started to realize that my time was probably better spent, using AI for all of this stuff up here and then focusing on my business. Now, you might wonder, why did we as a company expand into the AI sector if I'm pretty much, sitting here telling you that whatever you've built is of no use? That's, by the way, not what I'm saying, because I don't know any of you personally, right? You could have built something amazing and I could be entirely wrong, right? This is my personal experience, and from my circle of network, 99% of people are building stuff that doesn't matter, doesn't work, doesn't save you time or save you money, right? And that's what I'm here to do. We did not enter this space to add to the noise. We entered it to cut through it. So we are originally a crypto company. We then expanded into the news distribution sector, and we are now the most viewed platform on Twitter regarding news distribution, right? And we've now expanded into the AI sector, and we have done so for these three reasons. We are building software that actually matters. Okay, so we have actual developers on our team, and we're only building things that we know contribute to your growth, save you time, and that does not already exist. So we're not building and trying to sell you another Slack. We are building tools that doesn't exist, that will save you time and contribute to your growth. No clones, no wrappers, and no me too. We show the real side of the AI industry, right? That's essentially what I'm here to do, because this industry, much like every other industry out there, in my opinion, is complex. They essentially repackage everything into complex, useless information for no apparent reason, right? And we are here to share what's actually happening, stripped away of all of this nonsense up here. In other words, we teach what truly matters, right? What's real versus what is complete nonsense. Because to be honest, it's incredibly hard to tell the difference. And this is all based on personal experience and not bias, right? We've built it, broken it, and lived it. You get the conclusions, not the theory behind it. So all the software you'll find in the link in our description, we've essentially built a community where we've stored all the software we have ever built, right? And this is software that we know works. We know contribute to the growth or saves you time or saves you money. These are the things we build, right? So none of this other nonsense that you see within this industry. In other words, less noise and more signal. So of course there are exceptions. So here's when it actually makes sense to rebuild an application, because I know this is what a lot of people are focused on and what they care about and what they want to do. There's one case where it makes sense, and that is when it kills an unnecessarily large expense. That could be a subscription, that could be an employee, right? Any expense that you can replace is, again, direct. That's AI directly contributing to your revenue, right? So here's the math. Let's say you run a company, which for 99.9% of people watching this video, they're not going to run a company like this, at least not at this time. But let's say you run a company with 1,000 employees that are all on Slack. You will approximately pay $87,000 a year in reoccurring SaaS fees. Now, if you could build a replacement for that and kill an expense that is as large as, $87,000 a year, well, then be my guest. That is a real reason to build. That is not because I can. Now, again, Slack also charges this for a reason, right? You're probably not going to be able to replicate exactly what Slack is doing here. And so maybe it's not even worth it at that stage, right? But I could understand the idea, because that, again, immediately removes an $87,000 a year expense. So here are 5 AI use cases that actually pay for themselves. So we have customer support. This is pretty go-to for any business nowadays, because this replaces a team of agents, or in other words, it replaces an employee. So you directly and instantly see an ROI on this. So normally you would have to hire somebody to take calls all day and respond to customer complaints and stuff. I believe that this is a very solid use of AI, because now you can actively replace an employee. Now, I don't run a business where customer support is a huge issue, so I haven't done this myself, but the next one I have, right? And this has saved me a lot of money, and that's graphic design, because this replaces a designer's salary. In fact, this entire presentation is built using Claude Artifact, right? This used to take me so long. In fact, I got an award from Miro that said I was in the top 1% of Miro users, like active time spent within Miro, just creating presentations. I've now replaced that, and it took me 20 seconds. And this would have probably taken me 6 hours to create back in the day, right? So not only have I replaced a graphic designer, I've also saved so much time in presentation building. And if we come out to my artifacts here, right, we can have a look at all these different things. For example, I made an infographic regarding the US 30-year yield, and this is amazing, right? So this essentially created a beautiful design around the US 30-year yield that I previously had a designer do for me. And so I have immediately replaced somebody and immediately cut an expense. And so that is a great use case because, this pays for itself. Another thing is, organization. So that could be in the form of salaries, right? Or general spreadsheets within the company. These take so long to fill out, and AI can do that pretty much instantly, right? It can also ensure that salaries are exactly where they need to be. Are people getting paid on time? Are people getting compensated for accurately? If you have anyone that's based on commission within your company, you can set up things that tracks these things actively so that you don't have to, or you don't have to hire someone that does. So again, an immediate return on your investment because it pays for itself. Documentation, right? You probably document things within your company, and you can now, again, replace a tech writer if you have one, or save yourself so much time by simply having AI do this for you. And again, you can do that via Claude. You can just go into chat. You can create a new project and you can title this, for example, Salary Organizer. We can create this project and then we can essentially tell it everything that we have previously done. That means hundreds of examples of how we would do this previously. And now we have a project that organizes salaries for me, right? Then we can do something else. We can create a new project where we can say documentation, right? So now we have a project regarding documentation. Then you can give it examples of how you write. And this is great because it immediately saves you time. In other words, there's, an immediate ROI here. Strategy and research is a great one. Right? Again, this is something that I have personally done. I have fired my strategist because I can now just do this through AI better than he ever could. And so again, I have cut an expense, and that's why this was worth it for me to spend time on. And again, I'm not creating an entire application or a website for any of this, right? This is primarily done through either Claude Cowork or just a regular project. So there's a pattern here, right? Each one of these removes a real expense. And that is why it's worth building. If it doesn't kill an expense or generate real revenue, then you're just building toys. And this is the reality for a lot of people. And I'll probably hurt a lot of feelings because you feel like you've now wasted time. But I'm in that exact same position, right? It's not as if I'm sitting here just hating on everyone because I've been in the exact same boat. But then suddenly I realized that I was wasting time, and that time could be spent much more wisely and could contribute way more to my company as a whole. And here's why most AI businesses will fail, in my opinion. Most AI startups have none of this. They have no MOAT, they have no distribution, they have no real demand, they have no unique insight. They're just wrappers, clones, slight improvements, if even, right? And temporary novelty. And so none of this is worth it to spend your time doing. And the internet is now flooded with software that literally nobody asked for. And the scarcity has completely shifted, right? You see, what was scarce is coding, building, and designing. You actively needed to find someone with these skills in order to create whatever product you had in mind that required either one of these skills. Now, what's scarce is attention, trust, distribution, judgment, taste, and insight. When everyone can build, the advantage is naturally going to shift. So, for example, it shifts to who understands people the absolute best, who understands markets the best, and who understands attention the best. And then you can use AI to enhance every single one of these advantages that you hopefully now have. That is what you should spend your time working on. So again, I'm not saying that it's physically or theoretically impossible for you to create a new SaaS company that's going to do $1 million in revenue next year. I'm just saying the chances are so low that it might not even be worth it. You should spend your time building things and working on things that directly contribute to the growth of your company. And for 99% of people, the things they're working on are just not, right? They're just not going to do it. And I can say that because I've done it myself. And sure, you can argue that, oh, I'm a better vibe coder than you, or I understand AI better than you, or whatever, but it's not just me. It's a general thing in the industry. People are spending way too much time building unnecessary stuff because everyone else is. It's a hype train. And again, the scarcity has completely shifted. So ladies and gentlemen, I hope this video gave you some valuable insight, and I am speaking from personal experience. All I'm trying to do here is essentially make you understand what's worth it and what is not. We don't need another ClickUp. We don't need another Zapier or Slack or NoteTaker or whatever. We already have things for this that are probably 1,000 times better than what you're creating, because they are built by genuine developers who has spent years and years and years of their life devoted to this craft. And so why would I spend hundreds of hours building something with a $20 subscription? I mean, it just doesn't make sense. Ladies and gentlemen, just make sure that whatever you're building is directly and almost instantaneously contributing to the growth of your company. I hope you enjoyed this video. I appreciate every single one of you, and I will see you in our next video.